Hi, I'm Teresa and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my September wrap up. So this was my last month before university started. I started back on the 28th of September, almost completely online, but I know that during the semester I often do not have enough time to read and I don't have the energy to really do proper reviews and to want to do more work in the form of reviews. So this month I decided I would try and read as many arcs as I could and just get them out the way so I don't have to stress about them and I've not got to review them during the semester. And I was mostly successful. I still have a couple left to read. These ones have already been published. I received physical arcs after publication because of COVID delays, so I'm not too worried about them, but I would like to get them done soon. But back onto what I read. Last month, I read 6 books, and I also had my first ever DNF, a book that I just abandoned. So the first book I read was actually the DNF, and this was Islands of Mercy by Rose Tremaine. This is an arc that I got when I first started NetGalley months ago. It sat on my shelf for ages. I was interested in it when I requested it, but then I just got a bad feeling about it, and well, I was right about the bad feeling, and I could have just done this months ago and had the stress of it gone. So I only read to 8% of this, being completely honest, and according to Goodreads, it would be 370 pages. So I really didn't read an awful lot, but I really struggled with the writing and narrative styles. This book is a historical fiction and it's set in the 19th century, and the writing kind of emulated the writing style you would find from works from that period, and I'm not a fan of that. I find that really difficult to read. I honestly didn't care about the book, I was finding it so boring, and I read this chapter and I actually DNF'd after this because it just made me really uncomfortable. It was to do with miscarriage and it had this really horrible insensitive imagery, and it was very disturbing, and I just really didn't want to read more after that. I didn't want to push myself through it, so I just left it at that. But yes, this is a historical fiction. I think it's supposed to get sapphic at some point, though I never got to that point. And I'm just going to read a bit from the synopsis because honestly I don't remember much, and I also don't want to spend too much time on this. So this is set in the city of Bath in the year 1865. An extraordinary young woman renowned for her nursing skills is convinced that some other destiny will one day show itself to her, but when she finds herself torn between a dangerous affair with a female lover and the promise of a conventional marriage to an apparently respectable doctor, her desires begin to lead her towards a future she never imagined. And you've got some other characters doing other stuff, but that's the only kind of plot that I started on and read. I don't think I got to any of the other characters. I have no idea who they are. Maybe you'll enjoy if you like historical fiction and if you like older writing styles, more classic, more 19th century, but I did not, and so I just put it down. After that, I read Felix Ever After by Kaysen Callender, and I loved this book so much. I think I read it in a day, and I don't do that very, very often, but it was just so good, so easy to read, and this is a book I've been looking forward to for so long. But yes, this book came out this year and it's gotten a lot of hype and is very much worth the hype in my opinion. So this follows your main character Felix Love. At the beginning of the book, he identifies as a trans boy and he's kind of struggling a bit with that identity and if that label completely fits. He's attending the kind of summer program for his art school and working on his portfolio for going to art college. And so one day he shows up to the program, and in this kind of gallery they have at the front of the school where they share students' artwork, someone has posted pictures that they have found of him before he transitioned along with his dead name. And so a lot of this book is him trying to figure out who did that, struggling with his identity, and he also has some romance going on. You've got his best friend who's just amazingly supportive, such a good friend. Felix is also talking to this guy who he originally messaged from a fake Instagram account because he thought that he could have leaked the pictures, and he ends up just really connecting with him even though they've hated each other for years. And he's got that drama going on, and it's a lot, but it all works so well together, and there's such a good message of just finding yourself and being true to yourself, and it's so good. I highly, highly, highly recommend you pick this one up. The next book I read was another arc. I got proof for this one right at the start of the month, right as I'd finished all my arcs. And it also came out last month, so I didn't have long to read it, which I was not impressed about. Why did they approve you so late? This book is The Art of Saving the World by Corinne Duvis. This is one I initially requested because it just sounded really cool and I loved the rep that it's got in it. You have got a questioning asexual lesbian main character. I'll explain more in a minute, but you've got a lot of hers from other dimensions. So you've got lesbians who are comfortable in their identity, figuring it out. You've got a bi character, you've got more ace characters, and they all, or the majority of them, I can't remember, struggle with anxiety, and it's undiagnosed in the main character, but you see them at different stages in these journeys regarding their mental health and sexuality, which is really interesting. So this book follows a main character called Hazel, and when she was born, the fabric of the world just ripped open right in her backyard. And so she has spent her life unable to go further than 1.5 miles from her home because this rip gets angry when she leaves and things start flying through it and it gets very dramatic. And so because of this, obviously the government's gotten involved, so she essentially lives on a military base, just her and her parents and her sister. And so of course with Hazel not being able to go very far, she can go to school, a mini golf club and a diner, and so it's difficult to have friends, and so she's very isolated. On her 16th birthday, she's out in this diner with some friends, and it's all very dramatic. She has to go home very suddenly because the rift is out of control, and it is sent through Hazels from other dimensions, and they've just popped up. I think there ends up being 6 of them total, maybe. And the rift also sends through a note saying to look through the buildings, and they do, and they find another Hazel, and they also find a dragon. They all end up breaking out and going on a quest that this dragon talks about to save the world. And I really enjoy the concept of this book. It plays with the chosen one trope and conventions of storytelling and cliches and tropes and such, and it does it so cleverly. And I thought it would be quite confusing having several characters who are all the same person, but they're so distinct and unique, and it's so interesting how that has happened since they're the same person born into the same family. But overall, I didn't end up enjoying it that much. I don't know, I was a bit bored, and it dragged a bit. It felt longer than it needed to be. It's not even that long a book, but it was just like, are we done now? Oh no, we're not. It just kept going longer than I thought it should have. Also just didn't connect with the characters as such, and I really thought that's what I would connect with, but no. It's a very good concept, very clever concept, and I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed the blend of sci-fi in the modern world, but it just wasn't for me in terms of the actual plot and characters. So I think I gave that one 3 stars. The next book I read was Criers War by Nina Varela. This was a reread for me before the sequel Ironheart comes out. It comes out mid-October in the UK, but it's already out in the States, you lucky ducks. And I really love this book. It is one of the first sapphic books I read. I originally read it December last year. So this is a dual perspective high fantasy following Ayla, who is human in this world ruled by Automi, who are human-esque robots, really, but like very human, lifelike, but without the worry of feelings. And it also follows Crier, who is one of these Automi. So she is the daughter of the ruler of their country, and so she has lots of expectations in how she behaves as an Automi. She's also betrothed to another Automi man, and he is very anti-human. The Automi kind of have subjugated the humans mostly, and their human uprisings, which Ayla is part of, and that is why she works in the palace and how she meets Crier. But anyway, Keenock, Crier's fiance, is very anti-human, and he's looking to gain power through Crier and her family, and essentially build a new Otome city completely absent of humans. So that's the political side, the actual plot. And then the bit that I pay attention to is the yearning. There is such good sapphic yearning and pining and flirting in this book between Crier and Ayla, and I love it so much. They are on opposite sides, it's very much enemies to lovers. Ayla is not a fan of Crier, and poor Crier, she's so naive. A lot of the time, I love her so much, and oh, it's just so good. I do enjoy the political intrigue a lot, but I just prefer yearning, and this book does both so well. The next book I read was a review copy kindly gifted to me by the author, and that was Cute Mutants by S.J. Whitby. So I read volume 1, volume 2 just came out a couple of days ago. This is a self-published series, and it is very, very queer, basically. And I really love the concept of this series. So basically this follows X-Men superfan Dylan Taylor, who wakes up one day with powers, and she soon discovers that she's not the only one to have done this, and in fact, at a party the week before, one girl had kissed a few people. She'd been trying to figure out her identity, if she's attracted to anyone, and realised that she might be asexual. But anyway, she'd kissed these people and they'd all woken up with powers the next day. And so Dylan recruits them to be this kind of superpowered teenager squad, band of misfits. You've got lots of fun team dynamics there, building friendships, romances, all of that. You've also got a villain. This guy is going around creating earthquakes and just robbing places, you know, settling some scores. And so Dylan and her merry band of mutants decide to stop him. But the issue is that their powers are all kind of useless or just very odd, and I really love this aspect. Like, Dylan's power is she can talk to objects. So like her pillow's overly invested in her love life, and she's got an annoying alarm clock, and she's got a baseball bat that was a pacifist until she got her hands on it, and so much cool stuff like that. And all of their powers are a bit weird, and it's them learning how to use them and to bend them to their will. And it's just a lot of teen fun and hijinks and such. But I did end up giving it 3 stars because I really struggled with their writing and narrative style. It is kind of stream of consciousness first person, which I'm not entirely against, but I wasn't a fan of Dylan as a narrator, and it was also full of pop culture references and such, and I really worry how the book will age because so much of it is right now that I wonder if in a few years these references will just make no sense at all. I also find some of the drama a bit repetitive, wasn't that convinced by the romances, things like that. But I do very much recommend it if you are looking for some queer superheroes and to support a self-published author. And it is just a very good, unique concept, and I think comic book fans will really enjoy it. It had a lot of that energy and vibes to it. You have got a pansexual main character, her parent is non-binary, she's got a trans boyfriend, you've got almost all of the mutants are queer in some way, and it's just a very diverse book in terms of that. I do recommend, but it wasn't completely for me. Next up was another arc, and that is Who I Was With Her by Nita Tyndall. So this book follows a main character called Corinne, who has been secretly dating a girl from her rival cross-country team, and one day she hears through the grapevine that Maggie, her girlfriend, has died. And this book follows her grief and a lot of struggle with self-acceptance and just acceptance in general, because they were dating in secret because Maggie is not out and she is terrified of being out and of the world knowing that she is bisexual. And this struggle with herself is very interesting to read, and such a major part of the book, as well as the grieving process and also her meeting Maggie's ex-girlfriend and then becoming friends as well, and her role in Corinne's self-acceptance, but also her working through her grief. I just really enjoyed this. I love the message of self-acceptance and Corinne struggles with that and a lot of the pressures on her and on so many other teenagers. And I also loved how it had a kind of dual timeline almost, because you'd have flashback chapters to when Maggie and Corinne were dating, so you fell in love with their relationship as well, and that made Corinne dealing with her grief all the more impactful, and I just really loved that insight. I ended up giving this book 4 stars because although I did enjoy it and I read it very quickly, I read it over 2 days, it was so easy to read, so fast paced, which I was not expecting, but it worked so well. I didn't cry, so I gave it 4 stars. Basically, it just didn't hurt me as much as I thought it would and expected it to, considering the subject matter, and I just expected more from it, being completely honest. But it is one that I highly recommend, and probably other people will cry. I'm just a bit emotionless apparently. And finally, the last book was out now, Queer We Go Again, which is a queer short story collection edited by Sandra Mitchell. I've been reading this since the middle of August. I've just been doing 1 or 2 short stories at a time, and I finally finished it this month. So as I said, it's a queer short story collection and it's got quite a lot of well-known authors in it, and I really enjoyed it. For the most part, there were some stories I was a bit like, what was the point in that? But overall, I did enjoy the vast majority. So this copy is an ARC, though I didn't receive it personally. My friend Emily passed it on to me. So what I think I'm going to do is talk about some of my favourite stories, because it's difficult to talk about a short story collection about such different characters and plots and such as a cohesive whole. We've got What Happens in the Closet by Caleb Rodig. This is set in a world where vampires have invaded, and so their school are having a school dance and such. It's all very chill until vampires get involved and they end up attacking, and your main character and another boy end up running and hiding in a closet. It was just a lot of fun. We also had Lumber Me Mine by C.B. Lee. This follows 2 girls who end up meeting and sitting next to each other in woodwork class and bonding, and there's lots of pining and romance, and I loved it so much. Next up is Victory Lap by Julian Winters. This follows a boy working his dad's barbershop and his crush, or does he have a crush on him? He ends up with a crush on him by the end. I don't know if he did to start. Comes in to get his hair cut, and it's just his dad getting very involved in his son's love life. So enthusiastic and supportive, and it was so cute. Next is Seditious Teapots by Catherine Locke. So your main character has been collecting teapots with, like weird phrases on them, or ironic phrases on them, or whatever. And they meet this person called Lane in a tea shop, and Lane uses they them pronouns to talk about our main character. Our main character's kind of like, and they have a bit of an identity crisis. There's Star-Crossed in DC by Jessica Verdi. This is like sapphic red, white, and royal blue. that's the big vibes it gave me. I really enjoyed this one. Your main character is probably a Republican president's daughter, and she ends up kind of falling for the opposition's daughter. So a lot of this is her dealing with her family's politics and her role in them, but also the romance. Next up is A Pound of Flesh by Kosoko Jackson. This is about a boy who, back in way ancient Greek times, met and fell in love with Ares and accepted a gift or a curse or whatever from Aphrodite that he would be reborn again and again and fall in love with Ares each time, and Ares loves him too. And so they have been doing this centuries, and you find them in the modern day, and he's just done. It's just a continuation of the cycle, and your main character being desperate to stop this cycle, but also him and Ares loving each other so much that they don't know if they can or if they want to, and it's all about whether a human can love a god. And finally is Once Upon a Sea Storm by Fox Benwell. This follows a trans boy main character who may or may not be Selkie or part Selkie. You kind of don't know. It's a story his mother's told him and his affinity with the sea, and he's like, is it true? He ends up meeting a guy, they fall in love and such. He gets pregnant. The guy is quite horrible, and so your main character gets on a train and runs away up to Inverness, up in Scotland, all the way from London. That's a long train ride. And he's just at the beach trying to connect with his possible heritage of being Selkie, and of that being where his mother's from, and also doing some pondering. And I just really loved the kind of blend of modern and this possible fantasy aspect, and because it's Scotland. And they'd say stuff about Scotland sometimes, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I know that. Like macaroni pies, and I'm like, I forgot you guys don't have those. I really did enjoy that, and I did enjoy the majority of these. So that has been my September wrap up. That's all the books I read, and it was overall a pretty good reading month. I have struggled with picking up a book recently, having been in a bit of a slump, and a lot of these were average, but there were some just stand out amazing, like my lovely Felix. But you can find full reviews linked for all of these arcs in particular linked down in the description. I have that for all my videos, all the books I mention I link my reviews where possible, or just the Goodreads page if anyone wants to check them out. I should probably have mentioned that a bit earlier because I've been doing it for months, so you can find that in my previous videos. And you can also find me in other places as well. I feel so awkward doing this self-promotion thing, but like I don't think it's awkward when other people do it, and you kind of need to do it. So yeah, you can find me another social media link down below, and it's always in my descriptions. Oh my god, I'm going for the full promo, sorry guys. If you haven't already, please leave a like and subscribe, it means the world. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you with another video soon.